Hi, everyone, and welcome to this session of one of our Four Skills career talks. So today we are going to be talking to two of my colleagues in 4Studio. So 4Studio you'll be hearing a lot more about, but essentially they're the part of our business that look after all of our digital content. So the things that you see on social media, and the things when you're scrolling TikTok, when you're looking at Instagram that promote the shows. Um, and yeah, so as we go through, we're going to be looking at kind of how they got into the roles they're doing now, any advice that they have for people who might be looking at potentially doing similar roles. But if you do have any questions as we go along, make sure to drop them in the live chat that's below, if you're watching along with us live, and we will get to those questions towards the end. So first off, if we want to just do introductions, so we will start with you, Kate. If you want to tell us who you are, what you do, and yeah, what your kind of day-to-day job looks like.
Yeah, I'm Kate. I'm a digital video editor. My day-to-day job is basically editing content together for all of our platforms, Facebook, YouTube. At the moment, I'm working with Heather in the 4Studio Productions team to create some original content that we've made. Usually, we are working with episodes of shows to repurpose that into small little scenes for the platforms. We're creating kind of some new content that's never been seen before. So that's what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis.
Very exciting. So it's part of your job to spot what's going to be a meme and look at the like what awkward moments from first dates are going to make it onto
Yes.
social media platforms. Lovely.
Yeah, that's a really fun bit. Yeah.
And Heather, what about you? Yeah, what do you do?
What do I do? What a question. I am the senior content producer for Studio Productions, so I look after all of the editorial for everything that we make at 4Studio Productions. We sit within the 4Studio team, but the kind of easiest way to describe it is the rest of 4Studio look after everything from TV shows, so the clips from Gogglebox, the clips from Bake Off, whereas we have a development team who pitch brand new ideas, and it's my team's responsibility to make those ideas come to life and exist on the internet. So when I say that I look after the editorial, I will help the team and kind of guide them to decide, who's the best presenter that we could use for this, what's the structure of this, what's the format, what are the beats of the edit, are we going to get sued, is there anything we should flag to legal, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's what I do.
Cool. And when you talk about making content, what are kind of some examples that people might have seen?
So our first season of Love Against the Odds went out earlier this year. It's also probably worth noting 4Studio in itself will be 3 in March. 4Studio Productions has only existed since March this year, so
Oh,
we're a
wow.
very, very new team. Ironically, it is Channel 4's 40th birthday today.
Woo.
So yeah, we're a very new team, a very new part of that. But we've had an incredibly busy year. We released season 1 of Love Against the Odds, which is a digital-only TV show, basically. TV show? YouTube show, where we basically have couples who have overcome something phenomenal and prove that love is love and love conquers it all. So that's been amazing. We released that earlier this year. We had our second series of that commissioned in the summer, so we've just started to deliver that now. Before I came on this call, we just delivered episode 2, which goes out at the weekend, which is really cool. We've done a lot of shoulder content, which is basically a telly show for the linear kind of like normal what you see on telly will come to us and be like, we've got some money for marketing, we'd like to do a video to support this. So I don't know if you remember the Undeclared War, which was a telly show that was on earlier this year. They came to us being like, how can we get a younger audience to kind of get eyes on this, because we think if they saw it they'd love it. How do we do that? So we do the usual kind of clips from the show, but they're like, what else could we do? And we pitched 2 ideas. One is a strand we've kind of got that can work across a lot of different shows called Inside the Mind Of. So we did it with Murder Island, where we got ex-police, they're not like top dogs in the police world, come and tell us about like their most famous crimes that they've investigated, or what's the first time have you ever dealt with a serial killer? What's the most, stuff like that. It's really cool. But for that specifically, we got a white hat hacker, which is what they're called. So, you know, you get bad hackers, the ones that like you'll get the phone call from RBS being like, here, your credit card's been hacked. Not those ones, the good ones, the ones they hire to kind of combat them. We did a really good Inside the Mind with her, which was just giving really good like tips and tricks on like what being hacked means and how they kind of go about that and how to not get hacked. And we also did a thing with Hollyoaks, where we basically hacked into 4 or 5 Hollyoaks casts socials and found out loads of information about them that was just available online that they didn't realize people could hack into, to kind of show them that, you know, you're not as safe online as you maybe think you are. But yeah, that's just some of the stuff we've been doing. It's actually too much to name, but that's the ones that come off the top of my head.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like you've been busy in the past few months anyway.
Yes.
And in terms of, I suppose, having a career where you're working with social content. So for both of you, what was kind of your career path into what you do now? Where did you start off?
I mean, for me, I went to university in Leeds. It was called Leeds Met. It's now called Leeds Beckett. And I did film and moving image production. And when I was there, they kind of allowed us to work in all different aspects of filmmaking. So like from script writing, directing, sound, and then kind of you in to which one of those kind of professions you liked. And so I kind of went down the editing route. After university, I landed in as like an assistant editor, assistant producer in like a very small local business in Leeds, and that was like I worked there for about 7 or 8 years, and I learned everything on that job because I just did everything, from like invoicing, casting, hiring freelancers, location scouting, interviewing. You know, I just did everything. From there, I then kind of decided I really wanted to focus on being an editor over being a producer. Sorry, Heather, but I like being, you know, behind the camera and behind just in a nice office and that stuff. So just went on to another company where I just, you know, honed those skills a little bit more. Again, this is all corporate world stuff. I never worked in broadcasting before. I never thought I'd even be working in like Channel 4, somewhere like Channel 4. And so, yeah, a few years ago when we found out that Channel 4 were coming to Leeds, it was just like this absolute dream. And I'd walk past the building we're in now, which is the Majestic in the middle of Leeds. I'd walk past it on my way to my every single day, and I'd look there and I go, wouldn't that be great if I worked for Channel 4? That's never going to happen to like a Yorkshire Northern woman like me. And then just a job came out for a digital video editor and went for it and got it, and you know, it's been absolutely amazing since. But I've gathered so many skills through the jobs that I've done in corporate, through doing every single, you know, job in a production company, and it's really helped me in the job I'm in today. And I'm, you know, that's where I'm at. That's me.
Yeah, totally. And that's something that we talk a lot about in these sessions, is the idea of transferable skills. So, you know, even though you weren't working in the area of broadcasting, you were still developing all those skills that you're using today, and yeah, stretching yourself and learning new things. That's lovely about walking past the Channel 4 offices as well. I guess that's a bit like a real life vision board. You kind of willed it into existence.
It was a manifestation. I never really believed in manifestation until now. So there we go.
It's also a really good way of indicating that whatever your dream job is, like, apply for it. What's the worst that can happen?
100%. Exactly,
you're never going to be called up and offered that job if you don't apply for it in the first place.
Yeah. And just I think just the fact of like from me, I was very much like a mouse, and then like being pushed into the production world and having to interview people and talk to people and chat to people, and like, you know, I'm not a robot, and that's the whole thing about Channel 4 is we're not robots, and we've all got, like, everyone in our team, I'm sure Heather agrees, has like such a unique personality, and it just, you know, just being yourself is so important, I think.
Definitely. It's it's the most unique skill that you can have.
Yes.
And Heather, what about you? What was your kind of career path to where you are now?
I was just going to say, Kate is definitely not a mouse anymore, just in case anyone's wondering. How did I get here? Good question. So I went to uni as well, but I didn't do anything to do with what I am doing. I did English and comparative literature, which was lovely. I still love reading books, but has served me absolutely no goddamn use in what I'm currently doing. It was a lovely 4 years. I drank too much, had loads of fun. Complete waste of time. I came out of that and suddenly thought, oh God, I need to get a job, don't I? In Scotland, university is actually free. So I had the real luxury of being able to be like, oh, I've got some inheritance that I'd got from a grandparent passing away. I should probably put that to good use. So I thought I'll try and see if I can do a postgrad that will hopefully like specialise me a little bit in something that like a career, you know. So I signed up for a multimedia journalism course. 2 weeks in, I realised I do not want to be a journalist. It's not for me. But by that point, I was like, you can't have already paid for this. So I got really involved in student radio. And I've always loved music. I've always loved discovering new music. Yeah, I just loved it, and I started my own little radio show on the student radio, and off the back of that I applied for BBC Scotland for an internship. It was a 3-month internship, and the music team had never taken on an intern before, and I was like, well, the music team's what I want to be in. I want to work in radio. This is what I want to do. And eventually they were like, cool, okay, we'll have you. So I did that, and it was amazing. The people that I surrounded myself with, like the team that I was working with, the things I learned were just amazing. Off the back of that, I started doing some wee freelance bits with them, but it was very much like, you know, one shift here, another shift 2 months later. Like it wasn't a career. I was freelancing, doing like, I don't know if you remember like Capital Street Stars, where they'd like be in like shopping centres, because I thought like because it was Capital FM it was kind of the same. It's not. That's not a job in radio, just in case everyone's wondering. But yeah, I was doing loads of freelance bits, and it was kind of getting to the point where I was like, do you know what, I need to get a job, like if this is what I want to do. Spoke to my editor at the time and was like, if an AP job comes up, do you think like I'm in the running? And she was amazingly honest, and at the time
AP,
it hurt so bad.
AP
Assistant
meaning
producer.
cool.
An assistant producer job, and she was brutally honest with me, and she was like, there's about 8 people ahead of you, like you're just not ready yet. It's not that you're not capable, it's not that you won't get there, it's just you're not experienced enough yet. So I professionally said F it and decided to move to London on a whim. It was just like, you know, if you can make it in London, you can make it anywhere, right? So I moved to London, got a bar job, and then just started applying for internships left, right, and centre. Got one with a production company called Something Else, which will come back up later. But it was amazing. Off the back of that, I started getting a regular shift on the Economist podcast and audiobooks. So I edited their podcast for a while. It was just like 1 day a week. And I was like, well, that's great. I've got 4 other days to fill. What can I get? Where can I get it? I got a 3-day, was it an internship? It was definitely a learning job at a Roundhouse. Roundhouse is a venue in London that do loads of community work, do loads of charity work, and as part of that they work with musicians. So I set up their resident artist programme to kind of encourage and support artists, you know, people 18 and up who are like, this is what I want to do with my life. So I kind of set that up. Off the back of that, I had applied 6 times for a job at Radio 1 because that's what I wanted to do. And on the 6th time, I got it. I feel like every time I say that, it sounds easier and easier, but the blood, sweat and tears that went into getting that 0-hour contract was
wow.
So many crying phone calls to my mum. But I got there eventually, that sweet 0-hour contract. I started as a team assistant. So it goes like team assistant, that's the entry-level job in radio. Moved up to assistant producer, and eventually kind of 4 years later hit that producer. Was doing a lot of producing of all the shows across Radio 1 and 1 Extra. Again, it makes that 4-year period sound really simple and straightforward. I can assure you it wasn't. It was very hard work, loads of fun, but lots of hard work. And it kind of got to a point where I was like, this was the dream job, this is what I wanted, but I've kind of got here, I'm 24, I'm kind of bored. What's next? So my old producer, who'd moved over to something else, the production company I used to work at, was like, you should come and work in digital. Like, radio's dead. Stop it. Come here. And I was so hesitant. I look back in that phone call and it's so funny because I was so hesitant. I was like, no, I love the narrative. I love the storytelling. I really want to work in radio. And radio was amazing. Like it
Hmm.
really is. But I kind of was like, you know what, let's give it a bash. And if I don't like it, I can always come back.
Hmm.
And I've never looked back. I got a producer job with something else. I was looking after the X Factor. That was my first job.
Oh, wow.
So went on to that. The Honey G year. That was me. That was kind of
Ah.
my curse. And then from that, I worked on the Brit Awards. I worked on the Mercury Prize. Something else at the time, did a lot of social content for the BBC. So a lot of Radio 1's social content was looked after by them, which was really weird, working for them as like a client rather than in-house. We did a lot of pitching. We did a lot of pitching to like Amazon and Apple and Doc Martens, Swarovski. So got a lot of like brand agency experience pitching social ideas to them. After a roller coaster a couple of years with them, which I cannot tell you how much I loved every single minute with them. Something else for an amazing company. Cannot recommend them more highly. I decided I wanted to move back to Glasgow. So I moved back and got an agency role with a small indie in Leith, just outside Edinburgh. I lasted a year there before I realised the ad agency life, not for this gal. I don't like it. It's not for me. But you've got to try things. You've got to try things. And off the back of that, I went freelance. Was working with loads of agencies and indies across Scotland. Producing like multi-million pound adverts for telly, for shopping centres, doing really bespoke things for charities, like a real mixed bag.
Mhm.
Then COVID happened and I was fun employed for 2 or 3 months before things started picking up again. And then I started here. And I feel like I've been talking for bloody ages, Stephen. So take it away.
No, all good, all good. Super interesting. And I suppose one of the things that's really cool to hear is in terms of where you kind of honed those skills and built those kind of initial interests was actually not in formal education, but in those kind of societies
Yeah.
within university. And I think that that happens a lot with people where they might go in and start doing a specific course, and then because you're deciding at quite a young age, and then you realize actually this isn't the dream for me. But you can build up those skills outside of that through volunteering, through whether it's university societies, whether it's volunteering at like local radio stations, and that's all super valuable experience just because you
Oh,
weren't paid to do
100%.
something. Yeah, totally. Just because there wasn't you were working 9 to 5 at it doesn't mean that you're not building up a really valuable experience there.
Yeah. What's that phrase about driving a car? You don't actually learn how to drive a car until you've passed your test, right? It's kind of the same. Like you can learn all of this stuff in a classroom easily. Like, we could sit here
Mm,
for hours and Kate and I can explain to you exactly what we do. But until you're actually out there doing it, that's where you learn it. And like go and be a runner on things, like give up your evening, give up your weekend, try and get paid when you can, but
mhm.
accept the fact that, you have to sacrifice sometimes to get the rewards. And yeah, I'm sure we'll circle back to tips and tricks, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No, actually, on that point, so if someone watching was like at their very start and trying to get in contact with a smaller agency, or trying to either become a runner or get that kind of weekend work or anything like that, what kind of tips would you have in terms of where to start and who to contact?
I mean, I would say try and build up maybe a little bit of a show reel of something if you're
Hmm.
into editing, and that could be anything. It doesn't have to be something you've like created for like a client. It could be anything, like do a music video with like a
Mm,
local band that like I've done that before, and it's like so much fun. You learn so much, and also there's less pressure because you're not getting paid for it, and you're doing a favor. So try and build up a little bit of a show reel of work that you've done before in your own time. I think also showing that you've done it off your own back really adds to that, and I think that's quite attractive to someone who an employer. I'm trying to think of like agencies. Like I was just looking around on my the Leeds Met or Leeds Beckett had like a job like website, and I found the job that I did, my first job, on there. And it was just like an assistant editor, assistant producer. If someone says you're working freelance, remember you've got to pay tax, because I did not know that. And I fell into a trap of being like, I've got to do what now? I've got to pay tax. So, just that would be my one tip, is like, if you're going freelance, it means that you're not paying tax, and you'll get in trouble with your parents because you ask them for money to pay your tax. But yeah,
I think
I
more
just
importantly,
found
you
that
get in
I'm like,
trouble with the tax man.
yeah, I just was like, what's tax? So yeah, that would be a really good thing. But yeah, try and call people. I think nowadays people try and hide behind emails and messages and text messages and things like that. I think it's always try to call people. I think you get so much more from hearing someone's voice and asking questions, even if they haven't got a job. Like, call up a company and like I said, they don't have to have a job, but asking questions about what they do, what kind of things they're looking for. And it might happen that they're like, oh, we do need someone that can come in on a shoot with us, like next week. Would you like to do that? So it's just don't harass, but like, try and get your name out there and just be a little bit bold, basically.
Heather, would you agree?
Yeah, totally. I think specifically being like really honest about your experience. Like, I would much rather somebody messaged me and was like, hey, I'm straight out of uni. I don't really have any experience. I've never been in a professional shoot anymore, but I'm really interested. I really want to learn. Like, I'd happily just come and shadow, like, be honest about your experience. Don't, the whole fake it till you make it. There's definitely an element of that, and sometimes you do have to do that in certain circumstances, but particularly getting your foot in the door. Like, don't come in being like, oh, I've produced all this stuff, or I've done this, or like, just be honest. Be honest. Ask questions. Like, say you do get offered a shoot, and somebody asks you to do something, and you straight up are like, I don't know what you mean. Just say, I don't know what you mean. Because like, as a senior producer now, but even as a producer, having somebody on set or on a shoot and you ask them to do something and then they're like, cool, have you done that? And they're like, oh no, I didn't know what you meant. You're like, why didn't you bloody ask? Like, ask questions. People will never be annoyed if you ask questions. They'll be annoyed if you do it wrong or don't ask,
Yeah, totally. And those are like, I agree. We always say that about CVs as well. Like, those lies unravel really quickly. So don't, yeah, we've all started somewhere, but yeah, don't get yourself into a tricky situation there.
The other thing to remember is, like, especially media is quite small, like even across the UK, like it's quite small, and most people know somebody else or somebody in that company. And if you come and you're like, oh, I did this on this shoot, there's a high chance they could phone somebody and be like, oh, I heard you worked with so and so. So yeah, don't fall into that trap.
Can I just add as well, like, asking people who are already in the business or in the industry, sorry, asking them, like, trying to seek them out, on LinkedIn. I've had people message me on LinkedIn and asking me, look, I've just come out of university. What do I need to do to kind of get to be, a video editor? And that is absolutely fine. Like, it's it's something that I do, like, every now and again in Channel 4, is I'll just find someone that I've never worked with in Channel 4 in a department that I didn't even know existed, and I'll just send them an email and say, hey, would you mind having like a 15-minute catch up about what you do in your job role? And more than likely, people are going to say yeah. And if someone asked you that question, you'd probably go, yeah, that's cool. I've got 15 minutes. So on like LinkedIn is a great place to start to try and find people, even if it's not in like a big company like Channel 4, even if it's like, you say, like a local production company, just sending a message to like the CEO or the video editor or the producer there, and just being like, hey, I've just got out of university, or hey, I've just got out of college. What would you suggest that I do next? What will my next steps be? This is what I'm interested in doing. And hopefully they'll get back and just send a message back and give you some tips. I think, like, why not?
Yeah, and I think you're probably more likely to get a response from the more local and smaller companies as well. In terms of, I suppose, with digital content now, I suppose there's so many different layers in terms of everyone's a creator, but in terms of creating quality or successful content, there's kind of a steep learning curve there. So if someone was getting started in terms of creating content, let's say independently, and kind of trying to hone those editing skills, producing skills, what are some maybe software or skills that are free that they could be using?
With editing, I mean, it's not free, but Premiere Pro is what we use, and it is
Hmm.
so easily accessible. I can't remember how much it is, but you can just buy. I'll have Premiere Pro, and like I think it's like maybe £10 a month or something similar to just get Premiere Pro. It is a really good software to have. It's what we use here. It's what a lot of people, it's starting to be used in filmmaking as well. Films would normally be edited on something called Avid Media Composer, but I think nowadays it's like merging a bit, and people are using Premiere. The the free software that I would recommend below that would be, I would say below that, but to be honest, it's brilliant, is DaVinci Resolve. DaVinci Resolve is actually a color grading software, but it has an editing part to it. If you get the free version, there are some things that you can't do with it, but I think most of the editing capabilities you can use. So free DaVinci Resolve, and please, they've got like free tutorials that you can watch. YouTube has tutorials on how to use it. The only thing is that if you were to then get Premiere, it's kind of slightly different. So that's why I'm saying, even though it's not free, I would recommend getting Adobe Premiere Pro over DaVinci.
We're not sponsored.
Yeah, sorry.
The thing with the free ones as well, because you can get like Audacity for like audio if you're wanting to make podcasts, and then there's a really good mixing site called Auphonic, which will do a mix on your audio edit as well to make sure it sounds as great as it can be. The thing with any physical practical skill like that is, yes, it is different between software to software, but the basic skill is the same thing. So if you are sitting there and you're like, oh, I really can't afford £10 a month, cost of living crisis, am I right? But if you're sitting there being like, that's just not achievable for me, learn on the free one, and get as great as you can on the free one. But just know there will come a day where somebody will say to you, do you know how to use Premiere? And you have to be able to either be like, yeah, and then they give it to you, and you have to spend your first weekend of your job frantically figuring out the difference between the two, which lots of people have done. That's probably not okay. I know I just said don't lie, but you just need to accept that is going to be part of it, or just be really honest and be like, look, put Paul on this one, but I've never actually used this one because it costs and I've not been able to afford it. And nobody is going to turn around to you and be like, what do you mean you can't afford it? People will understand that. But yeah, it's just accepting that, you're going to have to pick that up at a later date, basically.
Well, that's what I did in my job that I were as an assistant editor, assistant producer. I worked on Avid for 7, 8 years in that job. And then when I got the job where I was full-time editor, they used Premiere. And I was just honest with them. And I said, I've touched Premiere, but I've not really used it that often. And they were like fine with that. And I think, just having the knowledge of what editing is and how to put something together, how to put a narrative together, is 50% of that job. And then the rest is the technical stuff. And I learned pretty much on the job. Obviously I did a bit of learning before I started the job, which is always good to have. But yeah, it just practically doing it and using it on a daily basis is just something that builds up your skills.
But I suppose with a lot of these tools, there's not an obligation for you to go through formal education, because you can try them out and figure them out on your own. And then there's also, so many resources out there on YouTube, tutorials, different courses. So it's kind of it's great that it's kind of removed that barrier of that kind of self-learning. So cool. We are going to wrap up in a little bit, but I suppose any last pieces of advice that, I suppose, if I could frame it like this, if you were to give a piece of advice to yourself at the age of 18, knowing that you were going to get into this role in the future, what would your piece of advice be, other than pay your taxes?
Pay taxes, yeah. Mine would be bolder. And I was always someone who very much didn't really want to go down to London. I was very much against that. And I think that's fine. I'm actually kind of happy that I did do that. But if I'd had gone to London, I think sometimes I feel like I learned more on the job than I did at university. And I'm not saying don't go to university, like no way would I say it, because I enjoyed university, but maybe it would have been good to take a year out before going to university and maybe like doing some apprenticeships. There's loads of apprenticeships, Channel 4 has loads of apprenticeships.
We do. There's
In
a
our
link
team.
down below if you want to see more about our apprenticeships. Little plug.
Yeah, like look for apprenticeships instead of, you know, if you're like not, if you're not 100% sold on university, like have a look into apprenticeships, have a look, like we were saying before, maybe doing a bit of like work experience first to see if that's what you want to do. And don't be afraid to ask questions, as Heather was saying, because like I used to be a mouse and never ask questions, and that just went against me so much. And do more stuff in your free time. 100%. Do stuff that you're passionate about, and like I love photography, so I just, you know, keep up with stuff like that, because it all kind of comes together, it all helps. You know, there are elements of photography that are, you know, that you use in editing in terms of composition, in terms of color grading, things like that. So it's find other things that you that keep your creative mind active.
Yeah, absolutely. And Heather?
Such nice things.
Do you have more threatening advice for your 18-year-old self?
Sort your life out.
Yeah.
Dump that boyfriend. Yeah, I think on the be bold thing, that's really important. I think like a side note to that is like be memorable. That doesn't mean like for bad reasons, but like, you know, figure out what your unique selling point is, what makes you different. Like it was quite easy for me in London because it was like, oh, the Scottish one, you know, like it's a lot easier if you can figure out what your unique selling point is, so that then people will remember you, you know.